Someone asks you for a favor you don't have time for. And before your brain even finishes processing the question, your mouth says, "Yes, of course." Not because you wanted to. Because saying no felt, for half a second, like it might cost you something you couldn't name. 5 minutes later, you're staring at your calendar, wondering how you just gave away your Saturday. And underneath the frustration, there's a quieter feeling, a kind of low-grade resentment toward the person you just helped, mixed with guilt for even feeling that way. If this sounds familiar, you already know this isn't really about being too nice. Here's what nobody tells you. Chronic people-pleasing isn't a personality trait. It's a survival strategy. And like most survival strategies, it was built a long time ago, in a context where it actually worked. Which is exactly why it's so hard to switch off now, even when the context has completely changed. Let's start with the science. Psychotherapist Pete Walker expanded the classic fight-flight-freeze model of trauma response to include a fourth category: Fawn. The Fawn response is when a person learns, often very early in life, that the safest way to navigate a relationship or environment isn't to fight back or run away, it's to appease. To make yourself agreeable, useful, undemanding, so that conflict never has the chance to start. There's also psychologist Mark Leary's sociometer theory, which proposes that self-esteem isn't really an internal measurement at all. It's a kind of social gauge, constantly tracking how much you're valued and accepted by the people around you. For most people, that gauge runs quietly in the background. For chronic people pleasers, it runs loud, all the time, and it's wired directly to their sense of safety. Let's break down what that actually built in you. The first thing is the Fawn response itself, and it's worth sitting with how intelligent this strategy actually is. If, as a child, conflict in your home felt unpredictable or even dangerous, a parent's mood shifting suddenly, tension you couldn't control, your nervous system needed a way to keep you safe. Fighting wasn't an option for a small child. Running away wasn't realistic. So your brain found a third path: become impossible to be upset with. Anticipate needs before they're spoken. Smooth things over before they escalate. It worked, it kept you safe. The problem is, your nervous system never got the memo that you grew up, and that most adults in your life today aren't actually a threat. So it keeps running the same program, in rooms where it's no longer needed. The second thing is conditional approval wiring. Many people pleasers grew up in homes where love and attention weren't a constant. They were a reward. Good grades, good behavior being easy to manage. These things were met with warmth. Inconvenience, big emotions, or pushback were met with withdrawal or disappointment. Over time, a powerful equation formed in the background of your mind. My worth depends on what I do for other people, not who I am, what I provide. That equation doesn't just disappear when you become an adult. It follows you into friendships, relationships, and jobs, quietly running every time someone asks something of you. The third thing is what we can call the resentment debt, and this is the part almost nobody talks about. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you're not actually avoiding conflict. You're just postponing it and moving it somewhere quieter. It doesn't disappear. It accumulates, often as a slow, simmering resentment toward the very people you're trying to please. This is one of psychology's strangest patterns. Chronic people pleasers often end up feeling the most disconnected from the people they give the most to, because the relationship was never built on what they actually wanted, only on what they were willing to provide. The fourth thing is identity fusion, the blurring of where you end and other people's needs begin. When you've spent years prioritizing everyone else's comfort, you can genuinely lose access to your own preferences. Ask a chronic people pleaser what they want for dinner, where they want to go, how they actually feel about something. And there's often a real, honest pause. Not because they're being difficult, because the muscle that tracks personal preference has gone quiet from disuse. You got so good at reading everyone else's needs that your own became background noise. Now here's the honest part. People-pleasing doesn't just cost you your time and your Saturdays. It costs you something harder to name, the experience of being truly known. If you're always managing how you come across, always softening, always agreeing, the people around you aren't actually getting you. They're getting the version of you that's safest to present. And that creates a strange kind of loneliness, being surrounded by people, even loved by people, while still feeling like no one has met the real version of you, because that version has rarely been given the room to show up. But here's the reframe. The same sensitivity that makes you a people pleaser is also a kind of superpower when it's pointed in the right direction. You read rooms instantly. You notice when someone's having a hard day before they say a word. You know how to make people feel comfortable, cared for, seen, and that is a genuinely rare skill. The goal was never to become someone who stops caring about other people. The goal is learning that your nervous system can finally stand down from a threat that isn't there anymore. You can care about someone and still say no. You can disappoint someone for 30 seconds and still be safe. That sentence might feel untrue in your body, even as your mind agrees with it. And that gap is exactly where the old wiring lies. You spent years making yourself easy to love because somewhere along the way, you learned that easy was safe. But you were never actually in danger of being too much. You were just a kid trying to keep the peace in a world you didn't yet have the power to change. You have that power now. The no you've been holding back isn't rejection. It's the first sentence of someone finally being fully present in their own life. If this finally explains something you've never had words for, you're not the only one. Hit subscribe. There's a lot more about how your mind protects you waiting to be explained.